Hello, folks. Wes Pruitt, 4-Star Sports Media. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Special Sunday live edition of the Tigers Den. We've got some things to discuss with a former coach under the Memphis Softball Program. If you checked out our article recently, there were some allegations brought forward by some former players and now by some former staff members about Stephanie Prothro in her time at Memphis. So we're going to dive into it, talk about these allegations, talk about what we have been told. And then also look at what's taking place today as the Lady Tigers softball program will get a big win in fall ball. All that and more, we're going to dive into it here in just a minute, right here on the 4-Star Sports Media Network. Appreciate everybody watching and listening. Welcome into the show, folks. Anybody like to comment, please jump over in the comment section. We're presented to you by SeatGeek as well. Head over to SeatGeek now. If you do, you can head over there and find any ticket, $50 or more. When you do, put in promo code 4-Star Sports Media. That will save you $20 off that ticket purchase. We here at 4-Star Sports Media utilize SeatGeek constantly, and we want you to as well. As we talked about in the little small intro there, this entire show is going to be surrounding the time at Memphis for former softball coach Stephanie Prothro. As I mentioned earlier, if you've been paying attention to our coverage, recently we put an article out that we've been working on since June on the time at Memphis and allegations brought forward by former players of complete mistreatment, honestly. Both in regards to lack of concern for injury, lack of concern for any mental health issues that players or staff might be having, and then just complete lack of care for the program in general, as far as learning players, that type of thing. Once again, thank you to everybody watching and listening. If you'd like to jump in the comment section, please do. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but let's go ahead and jump into it. So when you look at Stephanie Prothro, she was 14-87 at Memphis. That is a 139 winning clip. Overall, 14-87, 3-42 in conference play. She was previously head coach at Samford, not Stanford, Samford, Samford. She was 14-40 overall, 9-15 in conference play. As we know, Stephanie Prothro came from Alabama. She was a pitching coach, touted as one of the best pitching coaches in the nation. And at the time, Coach Poole was there previously, Natalie Poole. And this Memphis softball program, Stephanie Prothro was just the third overall coach. So now head coach Trina Prater is just the fourth. So this is a very young program, but it's a program that, if put in the right situation and if put in the right leadership, can win games. When you look at Stephanie Prothro, she came in. Obviously, most players were aware of who she was. And based on what we were told through exclusive interviews with a few numerous former players, this is where it began. From the very beginning, the players did not really have, a lot of, when the coaching staff first comes in, the team's excited. They're excited for how they're being treated, all that. But I think it was quickly noticed that if there was any type of injury, according to what we were told, according to these allegations, there was no concern. According to a former staff member that reached out to us after posting the article, these claims were 100% corroborated, and it's just, it really makes you wonder how this was even allowed to go on. But the former staff member would say, quote, "I fought hard to protect these girls, but at every turn was met with blatant disregard to the injury report in both practice and games." End quote. Blatant disregard to the injury report in both practice and games. That's not my words, folks. I didn't say that. But it corroborates the other things that players said about not, Prothro and staff, mainly Prothro, not caring about injuries. As we said in the article, we spoke to Stephanie Prothro on June 5th. She said in that interview, quote, "I'm excited about the upcoming season for Memphis Softball. Quote, I am excited about the future of the program." Just 12 days later, through sources, we would confirm she had accepted a position at Florida as their new pitching coach. I understand players, people make decisions. I get that. But you sit down with us on June 5th. You were just at the College World Series. Florida was at the College World Series. I don't know. I mean, I've gone back and listened to that interview now numerous times since June. And in my opinion, based on the interview that I did with Stephanie Prothro, she was checked out and she was gone on June 5th. Once again, that is my opinion based on the interview that I performed with Stephanie Prothro, at the time, head coach at Memphis. Blatant, I'll say it again, direct quote from a former staff member, blatant disregard to the injury report. She also said, quote, "I had multiple mental health crises that as a staff had to fight against." Not only is there physical injury, now according to what we were told by numerous people, there was mental. Once again, folks, these are not my words. These are words that were told to us by former players, and now, post article being posted, former staff member who reached out to us. Matter of fact, she would go on to say the article was, quote, "validation for the support staff that fought the whole way." How does this go on? So what are the allegations? Like I said, it starts with, first and foremost, it starts with lack of concern for injury. But then the bullying that went along with that, former staff member would say, quote, "the constant abuse, spitting in girls' faces, telling them how worthless they are if they were injured, led to multiple internal reports that fell on deaf ears." End quote. How is this allowed to happen? Secondly, when you look at her final record of 14 wins as a head coach, it tells a deeper and really honestly a scary story of players inside a softball program that were scared to death to play a game they loved. I was told by a player, quote, they had to earn everything. They had to earn the logo on the jerseys. They had to earn logos. Quote, we had to earn logos. We had to earn access to the locker room. And did not tell us she changed the lock. She said you had to earn it, end quote. How does this happen? How does this happen? If you read the article, we talked about lack of concern for injury. There was a player that was injured, did not care, threw over 100 pitches, was sent back in the game the next day. But then you go to the mental side of things, and it becomes even more. A player would say, quote, she felt more of a, quote, almost neglect under Coach Steph. She said, I wouldn't call it bullying, but we heard gossip among her staff about us as girls, and she didn't really try to hide it. End quote. She would go on to say, quote, we felt neglected and offended by the words she was using for us. So my question, you expect your team to go out in the field and play and perform to the best of their abilities, but not only are they injured physically, they're injured mentally, based on what we were told. We're also told there was not very good communication between the training staff and coaching staff. Well, now we understand why, based on the quote from the former staff member. Another player would tell us, quote, yes, I would say, she said, quote, there was not very much sympathy for injured players. I would say no sympathy at all for injured players. I just keep going back to the injured player part. But then this was brought, these issues were brought to Stephanie Prothro's attention by players. Player would tell us, coach, quote, specifically, I specifically, who would call myself a leader on the team, and a lot of people were scared to bring things to Coach Steph's attention. A teammate of mine had an injury that she was fighting through and not being respected by our athletic training staff. So I specifically had a sit-down meeting with Coach Steph. This is a direct quote from the player, folks. I specifically had a sit-down meeting with Coach Steph to discuss it and say that she was not being treated fairly by staff or Coach Steph herself. Coach Steph didn't really respect my opinion on it. I would say she was more criticizing the athletic trainer and the student athlete for not bringing it to her attention. Well, we now know from talking, like I said, talking to the trainer, former staff member, that she didn't want her to pay attention to injuries. But then, I mean, things were unraveling. I mean, there's a specific story that was told to me by numerous people that her and her assistant coach were arguing on the field for 20 minutes at the beginning of practice. The girls had to physically distance themselves into the outfield and in the edge of the infield to get away from their argument that took up a large portion of practice time. The two coaches just yelled at each other in front of the entire team. These types of actions, 14 and 87. You have to feel for the players that have played under her. I'm not stepping out when I say, based on the allegations that we've been told, I don't think this is a pattern that just started when she got to Memphis. But you can't be the head coach of a football team and tell us in an interview that we did with you as a head coach that you want this to be a family. You want to, going into her second season, she told us in an interview, quote, I want to invest more time in the girls. I want to get to know them better. We were told by players that there was no grace given from her. But that she didn't put any energy in to letting them know who she was. Like I said, folks, feel free to jump in comment section. I appreciate everybody watching and listening. We're talking about Stephanie Prothro's time at Memphis. It's a story that, as far as I'm aware, we're the only person that has. It's a story that, in my opinion, needs more attention. And it's a story that I just don't understand how it came to be. But when players make statements such as being, quote, ridiculed for having emotions about injuries, and when they say, quote, I feel like I got my last year of softball taken away from me, robbed from a girl who always dreamed of playing D1. Softball had always been my saving grace all my life, through my life hardships, and I let her rob my love for the game. And now I'm learning to love the sport again. Statements like this tell a story of an extremely toxic environment under Stephanie Prothro. Same player would go on to say, my last year was about how to get through softball and deal with my mental trauma from being on the field. And she would go on to say that, quote, therapy truly saved me. Is one of the only reasons I was able to get through that year. Like I said, Stephanie Prothro sat down with us. She told us what about the standards she wanted to instill in Memphis. Going into the 2023 season, she said that she was ready to get her girls in there. Now, I understand the sentiment of why that statement was made. I get that, right? But comments like, I had to deal with leadership that I had never dealt with before and figure out how to respect those who might not respect me. And comments like, as a team, we were all excited about a new coach, but from the jump, she made it clear we weren't good enough for her. That takes you into the final allegation, and that is that she didn't care about the growth of the team. But they paint a troubling picture of the Memphis Softball Program under Stephanie Prothro's leadership. As we stated, the lack of concern for injuries, the emotional abuse inflicted, and the lack of care for the roster and program, for that matter, should have been addressed. And more importantly, the players that came out, the players that reached out and said, hey, these things were going on. That takes courage, folks. As we stated earlier, the player made the statement, no one wanted to speak to Prothro about these issues, but she did. It took incredible courage to come and speak out about this. And as I've stated, the point of that article was to get the information out there and to help these people heal, whether that's players, parents, programs, whoever. And there's more to come to this. This is not over. There's more to come. But when you look at this program, as dark as the days were under Prothro, based on what I've been told through sources that I've spoken with, the Trina Prater era is already beginning in a more positive manner than Prothro had. They did get a win today, 14-1, over Jackson State Community College in their fall ball game. So shout out to Memphis for that. Big time win today from Coach Prater and the team. And you've got to, there's a little bit of a little bit of PTSD almost in a sense with this program and with this team. And I think Coach Prater probably understands a little bit of that. But this Memphis softball program, if you didn't want to support them before, after all this, and like I said, this is not over. There's more to come. But after all this, why not support this program? Why not get behind these players? But more importantly, go reach out to some players that's played for her in the past. Speak with them. That's what the article was really all about. It wasn't to get anybody to lose their job. It wasn't a hit piece on anyone. It was a letter and a understanding of, hey, this went on, and we need to try to help these girls heal. We need to try to help these parents heal. We need to try to help this program heal. Like I said, just wanted to get on here tonight, talk real quick, just to kind of get into a little bit of the allegations that have been brought to us. And like I said, there's more to come. But appreciate everybody watching and listening. Like I said, stay tuned. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow on the Sports Buffet tomorrow morning. We'll get into a little more in depth tomorrow. I appreciate everybody watching and listening. Like I said, if you want to share this, feel free to share it. And once again, like I said at the beginning, all these are allegations brought to us at 4-Star Sports Media by former players as well as former staff members about the treatment of players within the program and the program in itself, as well as staff members under Stephanie Prothro while at Memphis. And once again, if you want to read the article, head over to fourstar.live. It's where we can conglomerate all of our content together. Head over there now, and we will, you can head over there now and check out the article that's out, as well as all of our other content. But thank you to everybody watching and listening. We appreciate it. And as always, folks, go Tigers.